You think you know the story of the brave little tailor, the humble young man who killed giants and won a princess with nothing but his courage. But what if I told you this was not just a cheerful children's tale? What if behind the cloth, the thread, and the famous number 7 there lay a much older mystery? One rooted in forgotten myth and buried beneath the soil of ancient Europe. Hidden beneath the surface of this folk story lies a strange echo of rituals, myths, and heroic cycles that have existed for over 2,000 years. The tailor's needle may not simply stitch fabric. It may stitch together fragments of older traditions, from Mesopotamian warrior epics to Celtic champion tales, from runic inscriptions to medieval symbols of victory over chaos. The story of the tailor is more than whimsy. It is a coded legend, an archaeological relic disguised as a bedtime story. Once upon a time, there was a poor young tailor who lived in a modest shop at the edge of a bustling town. He had nothing but his craft, his wit, and his belief that destiny would someday lead him to greatness. One summer morning, as he worked on a piece of cloth, a swarm of flies buzzed around the jam he had bought from a passing vendor. With a single bold stroke, he swung his cloth and killed 7 flies at once. Inspired by his victory, he stitched a belt with a proud inscription, 7 at one blow. Word spread quickly, but as often happens in folktales, people misunderstood the phrase. They believed the tailor had slain 7 men, not 7 flies. From that moment, his reputation grew far larger than his actual deed. The tailor decided to set off into the world to prove himself worthy of this accidental fame. He soon encountered a fearsome giant. Using his quick mind, the tailor tricked the giant into believing he possessed superhuman strength. He squeezed a piece of cheese, making it drip like water, and the giant, convinced it was a stone, was astonished. Challenge after challenge, the tailor triumphed with cleverness rather than brute force. Eventually, the king heard of him and, though skeptical, sent him on dangerous quests. The tailor outwitted ogres, subdued wild creatures, and accomplished tasks that seemed impossible. In the end, the king reluctantly offered him the hand of the princess, and the poor tailor rose to become a prince. The people celebrated, believing courage and cleverness had defeated chaos and brought prosperity. Thus, as the familiar tale tells us, the brave little tailor lived happily, triumphing against overwhelming odds, his wit sharper than any blade. But the tale was not always told this way. Like many folk stories, the brave little tailor passed through centuries of retelling, reshaping itself with every age. The earliest recorded version can be traced to the 16th century, when fragments of German chapbooks carried a similar story of a clever commoner defeating monstrous beings. In these versions, the hero was often depicted not as a tailor but as a trickster figure, a man of the people who rose by deceiving those stronger than himself. By the 19th century, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm collected and refined the tale for their famous anthology. In their version, the tailor was not merely cunning but also strangely blessed with fate, almost touched by destiny. The number 7 at one blow was elevated from a joke about flies to a legendary mark of superhuman power. The Grimms reshaped the hero into a figure who embodied both wit and divine fortune, making the tale suitable for children yet still laced with mystery. Over time, different cultures emphasized different morals. In rural Europe, the story was about intelligence triumphing over muscle. In courtly settings, it was about the rise of the humble into nobility. In some Eastern European retellings, the tailor became more warrior than trickster, his cleverness less emphasized than his courage. What is striking is how the story endured through so many centuries. Each era imprinted its values upon the tailor. Peasants admired his cunning, kings feared his rise, and children delighted in his clever tricks. Yet beneath these changes, a consistent pattern remained: the tale of the small defeating the great, the weak overcoming the strong, and wisdom surpassing brute force. The persistence of this theme hints at something older and deeper, a current running beneath folklore that reaches back into ancient myth. On closer inspection, many details of the brave little tailor mirror ancient myths and rituals that predate medieval Europe. Consider the giant-slaying motif. In Norse mythology, Thor tested his strength against giants in contests of wit and endurance. In Celtic lore, champions often outwitted monstrous beings, not by sheer strength but through cunning. The tailor's trick with the cheese recalls countless trickster tests, where the hero convinces a giant or monster of his superiority through illusions. The number 7 is also significant. Across cultures, 7 has been sacred: the 7 days of creation in Judeo-Christian tradition, the 7 gates of the Sumerian underworld, the 7 stars of the Pleiades, the 7 virtues and 7 sins. The tailor's 7 at one blow transforms a simple accident into a cosmic statement, connecting him to mystical cycles of completion and divine power. The act of sewing itself holds symbolic weight. Needles, threads, and cloth are more than tools of labor. In many Indo-European traditions, weaving and stitching represent fate. The Moirai, or fates, in Greek myth, spun and cut the threads of life. In Germanic tradition, the Norns wove destiny at the roots of Yggdrasil. The tailor, with his needle and thread, may not merely patch clothing, he may symbolically weave the fabric of destiny itself, linking human survival to the cosmic loom. Even the marriage to the princess carries echoes of myth. It represents the union of the humble champion with the divine feminine, echoing stories where the hero proves himself worthy to unite with sovereignty itself. In Irish myth, kings gained legitimacy only through union with a goddess of the land. Similarly, the tailor's elevation to royalty suggests more than personal success. It may symbolize the renewal of kingship through wit, courage, and fate's favor. Could it be that the brave little tailor is not simply a clever peasant? Perhaps he is the distant echo of an ancient symbolic role, the trickster hero, the weaver of fate, the small yet destined figure who rises to cosmic importance. In 1873, during an excavation in central Germany, researchers uncovered fragments of parchment in a ruined monastery library. Among prayers and fragments of sermons was a strange Latin text that described a man of cloth who felled the giants with trickery and was lifted to royal station. Scholars debated whether this was an early Christian parable or a hidden folktale, but its resemblance to the brave little tailor was unmistakable. Later, in the early 20th century, ethnographers discovered variations of the same story in places as distant as Scandinavia, Turkey, and even the Caucasus. In Armenia, the hero was a shepherd who tricked giants. In Finland, a humble farm boy defeated trolls. In Anatolia, a dyer rather than a tailor outwitted monstrous adversaries. Despite cultural differences, the pattern was always the same: a poor youth, a deceptive act of strength, a confrontation with giants, an eventual union with nobility. This widespread pattern has led experts to believe that Tale's roots stretch back much farther than medieval Europe. Folklorists such as Auntie Arne and Stith Thompson classified the motif under the International Folktale Index as a TU 1640. The Brave Little Tailor. Comparative studies reveal parallels with Mesopotamian myths over 4,000 years old, where heroes performed symbolic feats of trickery before ascending to positions of divine favor. The recurring structure: poor child, magical or symbolic object, confrontation with monstrous guardians, and the crossing of boundaries from poverty to kingships, strongly suggests the story encodes an ancient rite of passage. Archaeologists have even noted that images of small figures battling giants appear in rock carvings across northern Europe. These visual echoes, predating the written record by centuries, may represent the same cultural memory that eventually crystallized into the tale of the tailor. The evidence now points toward an origin not in medieval fairy stories, but in prehistoric myth cycles, carried forward by oral tradition and reshaped with each retelling. At first glance, the brave little tailor is simple. A poor man succeeds with wit, but symbolism lies thick beneath its fabric, waiting to be unraveled. The magical object is not a sword, nor a crown, nor a talisman. It is the belt he stitches, marked with the word 7 at one blow. This belt is a proclamation of power. Across history, belts and girdles symbolized authority, initiation, and even supernatural strength. In medieval knighthood, a belt conferred honor. In ancient fertility cults, girdles represented binding and releasing life forces. The tailor's belt transforms his humble identity into that of a mythic champion. His action killing 7 flies is laughably mundane, yet the number 7 elevates it into cosmic significance. 7 is a number of completeness. By inscribing it upon his body, the tailor becomes more than a man. He becomes an agent of fate, one who embodies wholeness and mastery of cycles. The flies, too, are not meaningless. In many traditions, flies represent decay, corruption, and demonic influence. To kill 7 at once is to banish forces of death and chaos. The confrontation with the giant is not merely comedy. It mirrors the ancient motif of Chaos Kampf, the battle between the small divine champion and the forces of primal chaos. Where Marduk slew Tiamat with a net, where David felled Goliath with a sling. The tailor defeats his giant adversary with a piece of cheese and a trick of the mind. The act reveals that intellect and illusion can triumph over brute chaos. His marriage to the princess is the final piece of the symbolic journey. The princess is sovereignty, the embodiment of the land, the guarantee of continuity. In marrying her, the tailor is ritually crowned, his destiny sealed. He has passed from obscurity to the throne, from common labor to cosmic order. Perhaps then, the brave little tailor is less about flies, giants, or even wit. It is a dramatized initiation myth, a symbolic journey from mortality and poverty into authority and immortality. That humble tailor is not just a man. He is every initiate, every seeker, every soul tested by chaos and transformed into a ruler of destiny. The story of the brave little tailor you thought was a light-hearted folktale for children turns out to be something much deeper. It is the survival of a mythic cycle stretching back thousands of years. It carries echoes of Norse tricksters, Celtic champions, Mesopotamian heroes, and Indo-European rites of initiation. It is a tale of fate woven into cloth, of chaos subdued by wit, of 7 transformed from flies into cosmic symbols. What began as a humorous story of a poor tailor has endured, because it speaks to something timeless in the human soul. We are all small in a world of giants. We are all faced with challenges that seem impossible. Yet, like the tailor, we may discover that cleverness, courage, and destiny can carry us beyond our humble origins. The archaeological traces suggest this tale is not a random invention, but a vessel of ancient memory. The mythical patterns reveal it as a ritual story disguised as entertainment. The symbolism shows us that the tailor's needle is also the thread of fate, stitching together the human struggle for survival and transcendence. So the brave little tailor is not only a clever man who tricked his way into a kingdom. He is a symbol of humanity's oldest dream that the weak may rise, the small may prevail, and the humble may one day rule. And if that sends a chill down your spine, wait until we explore the next story, hidden in plain sight, waiting like an archaeological relic beneath the surface of a bedtime tale.